Well, welcome to our talk studio, and it's great to have David Makali back with us, and Peter Opondo, great to see you as well. And of course, this issue, critical, the alliances that will be formed as we head into this election. December 4th is the key date. Gentlemen, give me your projections. What are we likely to see, and especially in view of the fact that we've been told there are quite a number of complexities around the formation of these pacts and coalitions. Let me start with you, David.
Well, I think there is still enough time for new political formations to come up. And what we saw this week between the G3 seems to be basically touching base. You know, they were together and each had gone their way to strengthen their parties. You remember William telling Uhuru that you first go and form your party, and then you come around the table, we talk. So it seemed like Uhuru has now come back to the table. So, and seeing how he has been running and almost opening up the gap, I think there was some sort of worry arising within the G7 alliance that are we still together? So this coming together, I think, was basically to touch base and reassure each other that, you know, come what may, our fate is shared. But I see that this cannot be a definitive alliance yet. I think there's going to be more movement, more shifting of loyalties or coalitions. By the December 4th, we like to see different faces. Some people who are on this team could be on the other side in ODM even.
Okay, I think what we need to ask ourselves is, what is animating this kind of meetings that we are seeing? I think for a long time, what has animated this presidential campaign for 2013 has been anyone but Raila Odinga. But slowly and progressively, we are seeing that the ICC cases are also playing a very important role in terms of shaping up what will come out in 2013. And so when we saw the Uhuru Kenyatta, Kalonzo Musyoka, and William Ruto having a meeting, the one thing that you can see, because we've already said that the kingmakers, if they are not the kings themselves, William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, will be the kingmakers of 2013. What is the common interest that they have? Their interest is ICC. And I think slowly they are coming to that reality that the Kenyan courts, the reformed judiciary in Kenya, could actually stop them from going for the presidency. And if the court stops them from going for the presidency, what is their alternative? Who is the presidential candidate that will protect their interests? And I think that's the thing that we should watch out, because I think the key thing that will determine this election is actually the ICC process.
Let's talk about wearing Ngilu, Charity. I think some graduating this week. Where does she fit into this picture, David?
I think Ngilu is still pretty out there. The field is too crowded, and I think she will only become useful if, say, the courts do not bar William and Uhuru from running. And if that happens, I'm sure that Uhuru is going to try and run in this election, if not both. And if they do, then we're looking at people like Charity playing the role of running mate. They come in at that point as substitutes. Otherwise, in the way she's behaving, it seems to me that she's being talked to by TNA to try and cut certain constituency to bring on board the mainstream G7. Because previously she was affiliated with ODM or had close links with ODM. But since she launched her bid, it's been seeming like she's going further and further away, carving a niche in that
Actually, seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
It's almost like the writing on the wall. But with Charity Ngilu, perhaps you're never quite certain.
But then you're never sure, because when they had this meeting last week, Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, and Kalonzo Musyoka, the vibe that came out of that meeting is that they were thinking, in case they are stopped from contesting for the presidency, maybe the person they should look up to is Kalonzo Musyoka. And where does that leave Charity Ngilu, because they came from the same region? So you can never really be sure about that.
Gentlemen,
okay.
Let me, because our time, okay, very quickly, David.
No, maybe go ahead.
Because our time is short, I wanted to bring the conversation back to what you say nobody's thinking about, but I continue to, which is what do they represent for this country? So these coalitions coming together and common purpose, aside perhaps from interests that are related to self. Any interesting observations about what they would represent if we say, for instance, Uhuru, Kalonzo and William Ruto coming together with their supporters? What kind of Kenya do they represent? Raila and his current ODM, Who is he courting, and what kind of Kenya would they represent? I'm sorry, this is important. We have to come back to this. David.
You know, that is a puzzle. I mean, Julie, I keep telling you, you'll be the last person standing on issues in this country, because issues really are not defining the political formations, regardless of how many times the politicians are going to tell us they're partnering or building alliances with like-minded parties. There's nothing like that. It's about the numbers that you can marshal. And if you look at the G7, the G3, who are together the other day, they're brought together by basically, as Opondo has said, insurance. They're seeking insurance for the two guys who are facing ICC charges, that in the event we have to go and the court's bars here, who is our best custodian of our interest? And if you look at those three, they're brought together by, and who will become the candidate there really is determined by basically three factors. One is peerage. All of them are of the same, political clout, if you say, but clearly the vice president is the first among equals. I mean, Uhuru has run, he has been, they both lost, now he's vice president. So in the pecking order of things, he's above them. So if he can assure them that he'll protect them if he takes the ticket.
Uhuru has run twice, though.
Yeah, no, once. He ran once, then he backed Kibaki in 2007. So they have the same score.
You're absolutely right.
All right.
Yes.
And then they're brought together here by expediency or political, their own self-preservation. If they happen to go, what will happen to us? And if one of us were to take power, will you, guard our interests? Those considerations. And then what will eventually determine is the weight of the workmanship. How many people do you bring on the table? And that's where Uhuru now leads. So in terms of peerage, Kalonzo is ahead. In terms of numbers, Uhuru comes next. And William is the guy who has to deliver the victory for either of the two.
Peter, go ahead, please.
I think I began by saying, we need to ask ourselves, what really are the interests that are bringing these guys together? And at this particular point in this country, unfortunately, it's a fact that issues are not the interests that are bringing them together. The issue of, let's say, free primary education, universal healthcare, those are not the issues that are bringing them together. The issues that are bringing them together is self-preservation, survival at this particular point, and you have to live with that reality. So, in fact, when you asked about Charity Ngilu, I thought you would have asked about Musalia Mudavadi, because I think what we are seeing is the two guys who can actually benefit from this is either Musalia Mudavadi or Kalonzo Musyoka or Eugene Wamalwa. And so when you look at, they will try and see who is the safe bet for us, who will protect our interests, William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, who will protect our interests in the event that we are stopped from contesting.
I think very interesting to see what's going on, but it seems Musalia is still a little bit on the sidelines, and perhaps will be interesting to watch how that goes. Gentlemen, paint a picture for us. Paint your scenario for what will happen or is most likely to happen on December 4th. What will the political scene look like? Peter, please start us.
I think that we're going to have a lot of permutations that are going to happen, as the politicians themselves showed us this month. We know that Raila Odinga, for example, behind the scenes is trying to woo William Ruto back to ODM. That's a fact. Whether it will work or not, we don't know. And so we cannot actually say right now that it looks like it's either Kalonzo Musyoka or Musalia Mudavadi. You saw when Musalia Mudavadi was coming back home from the US, I think in London, he sent a statement trying to suggest that he does not support the ICC process. He wants the cases brought back home. Clearly, he was trying to endear himself to Uhuru Kenyatta's supporters and William Ruto's supporters. And I think at this particular point, you can never tell. My thinking, my hunch would be that even Raila Odinga could end up being in the mix. He could end up getting one of the support of one of those candidates. So you can never be so sure. It could be Musalia Mudavadi, absent William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta. It could be Musalia Mudavadi. It could be Raila Odinga. It could be Eugene Wamalwa. It could be Charity Ngilu. So it's so fluid at this particular moment that you will be just... you can't hazard a guess as to what it will be like in December 4th.
Try your best, David.
It's tough. I mean, as Opondo says, there is a likelihood that the people we are seeing together now will be apart because there are egos here. And like I said, they're brought together by certain personal considerations. And whether they decide to back any of them or one backs the other will depend on what their stake is. I for example, do not see, under whatever circumstances, Kalonzo Musyoka supporting William Ruto or being his running mate. in terms of the things I described, in terms of peerage, in terms of their egos. One feels senior. And even as they hang together, this is all PR, because when the chips are down, it's going to be who is senior, who needs to back who is the best to deliver this vote. At this point, the people I can bet are going to be on that ballot. The only person I can bet is going to be on the ballot is Raila Odinga. The others, you really can't tell.
Okay, we'll leave it at that, but let me ask this. A move, of course, on Thursday by our legislators to give themselves perks has been received with outrage across the country, especially in view of the fact that teachers have been striking, doctors have been striking, the issues in health have been made so clear, even, you know, being shown by doctors themselves online through what is being called the Perimende movement, pictures of the shocking state of health. Peter, let me start with you. What is your response to this move by our MP?
First of all, I should say that I'm not surprised. You will remember that in 2007, again, members of parliament, as just towards the end of that parliament, they gave themselves a send-off package. I think it was 5 million, if I'm not wrong. And so this time round, of course, in the face of what was happening, doctors on strike, teachers on strike, and the way the government was standing firm that we don't have the money, for the government, I mean, for members of parliament to go and award themselves that kind of money, 2 billion shillings, that's not small money. I think that President Kibaki, as lame duck as he is, because we know he's going home, he should stand up for Kenyans and say, I am not going to sign this bill because the Kenya cannot afford this money. We've already paid teachers and we are hiking taxes so that Kenyans are paying more to sustain what is already there. We can't simply afford this money for members of parliament.
Right. I just find there is a lot of hypocrisy with our politicians. I've just seen them there condemning the same actions by fellow MPs. This House passes these laws and these bills and motions. They come way before they come to the floor of the House. How come these MPs never look at them and raise their alert? So now,
actually, it was very quiet. Yeah. It was unusually quiet.
I mean, it's okay for us to say we discovered, but this go out on motion papers before. And so when you hear the MPs complain later on, you know, as the PM is doing, as Martha Karua was doing the other day, you wonder where they are. I think that the MPs are on a looting spree of the country, and the executive needs to stop. The executive has been time and again blackmailed into passing this legislation, into passing such bills or packs, because MPs say if you don't give us these packs, we're not going to pass the finance bill. So they normally hide them under there. But I think it's time for the executive to stand, because the public is is opposed to it, and the executive should win this war.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for that. And so the country looks to President Mwai Kibaki to be stern with the Member of Parliament on this issue and to stand up for Wanjiko, leave a legacy for the Kenyan people that we will not forget, a critical issue. Much more coming up on Sunday Live. Don't go away.